everyone, this is Holly Oftedal with Highland Genetics, and today we are going to talk about rotational grazing and why it's important. Today I'm here with Josh Krentz from Winland Flats, and Josh, you got some grass in your pasture.
It was a good year for grass, Holly. It was a really good year for grass.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your rotational grazing program?
Yeah, sure. So you see we got some cows here behind us. This is just a small fraction of the group that's in here. Right now there's about 25 head of cattle out here, and they're going to start to leave as we talk about them. But we're running pasture here. We've got about 70 acres fenced in, and across those 70 acres we've got it subdivided into about 15 different pastures. And so that really helps us from a rotational standpoint to make sure that we've got grass that looks like this. So we never let them get that grass, in this case below 8 inches. It's kind of our mark to this. It kind of depends on what kind of grass, what kind of soils and conditions that you have. In fact, most times we have it still much higher than that. As you can see, this pasture actually, they've been in here since yesterday. So when you start to look here, they're knocking it down as well as grazing it. They'll bed down in here as well. But that's helping them get that protein level that we need from that grass.
Well, you brought up a couple of really good points that I'd like to talk about some more. The first one is, you said that you usually pull the cattle off the pasture once the grass is about 6 to 8 inches in height. Can you elaborate as to why you do that?
Yeah, so that's the minimum, right? And so we actually, that's traditional grazing and rotation. We do intensive grazing management.
Yep.
So we're actually rotating our cattle 1 to every 3 days. So in fact, this pasture, most of this grass will still be here by the time the cattle go to leave.
Right.
But in a case like last year where we had drought and these pastures didn't look quite as well, we never want to let it get, in that case, below, in our soil, below 8 inches, because then you're not allowing for that regrowth to happen.
Yep.
Especially when you go into the fall. There's a lot of nutrient. These are solar panels. That's what grass is solar panels. And it's got to grab all of those components, make chlorophyll, and then store nutrients in the roots. If you have this thing look like a golf course, you won't have any nutrients. That grass won't come back.
Right. Sure. Do you want to talk a little bit about how cattle are healthy and beneficial for grass while they graze? Their feet, the compaction that they make on these beds, even their saliva is helpful in regrowth.
Yeah, so, it's all just an ecosystem, right? So, the cattle benefit from the protein levels that they're getting. You can see we got good green grass in here, so that's a higher protein level. You'll see that in the cow poop, as they get loose this time of year, we say, because there's such a high protein level in it. But then the grass is benefiting from the fact that the cows are coming out here trampling it, they're aerating it. It's part of the component. We've got a diversity of different grasses out here. So they're more browsers, so they're coming in. So there's a lot of different types of grass because of the way they're doing it. And cattle don't come and they're not like a horse. A horse grabs grass and rips it out. Yep. Cattle come in and they hit it at different points of time, so they get that saliva on there. That makes the plant react and want to grow back.
Right.
Having those components in there, the way that cattle eat, the saliva that they have, all those components, and then not to mention they spread fertilizer back out on the field.
Right.
So the ruminant is a beautiful thing. Unlike us, they can utilize most of the nutrients out here where we can't. We utilize the nutrients by eating cows, right?
Right, absolutely. Now there are a couple different varieties of grasses, and you talked about how you utilize a lot of different ones. I would say the two biggest categories are cool season grasses and warm season grasses. Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about what we see out here right now?
Yeah, so we're in Minnesota, so we primarily have cool season grasses is what we primarily have done. We've done some experiments with some warm season, but they don't survive the winter, so they are a plant and utilize that same year. So example of that would be teff grass.
Okay.
So we use teff grass as kind of our base grass when we're establishing a grass, and then we come in like with orchard grass is what we're looking at here. So we'll have orchard grass that grows really well in our sandy loam soils. As all of our cows leave our background now, they're done with us. But we can grow Timothy here. Primarily our mix that we've got going on is we've got some orchard We've got some fesculum going on. We've got some brome grass. We do have some clover. It's hard to see in here, but we do have some clover. This field here actually got reseeded this spring. And by reseeded, it looked like this last year. There was a lot of grass, but we were trying to add a little bit more biodiversity with some legumes. That's the other thing you want to do is add legumes and grass, because legumes put nitrogen in the soil and the grasses utilize it. And so we came in here and we interseeded in some red clover. We used a no-till drill to do that, and I'm sure if we dug through some of this grass, we'd find some baby red clovers in here someplace.
Do you want to talk about pasture density? You know, properly rotating pasture, you can put more pairs out onto a pasture with less acres, and the benefit that that has to your farm.
Yeah, absolutely. So from a density standpoint, first you got to know your soil, your plant, and what you've got in your area, because even density means something different in every part of the U.S. from that aspect. I was just visiting some cattle out west, and their idea of intentional grazing and density is different than what ours is here in Minnesota, where we have plenty of water this year. But it does, you know. So this pasture right here, we'll pan around later and look at it. But you know, so this is a 16-acre pasture that we've got divided into 4 sections. And each one of the sections looks like this right now. And that density of that grass that we have in here isn't just about the height, but it's the amount of grass that we have per square foot as well. And so allowing the cattle to come in here, we bring more cattle in at a time for a shorter period of time. That's the intensive part. And then what they'll do is knock that down, the protein comes faster, and we then are able to run more cattle. We're able to run more pairs out here, more steers, whatever it is that we're trying to feed out.
Right. And have you seen any differences with like the length of your grazing season after rotational grazing?
Yeah, so absolutely. So the last 3 years we've had pretty intense drought here in Minnesota, and most of the local farms in this area started feeding hay in July. Like that's how it was here in a lot of parts of Minnesota, unfortunately. This year we've got the opposite problem. We've got a lot of rain, a lot of moisture. We're able to extend it. So, you know, we grazed into August in that same year, you know, because we were rotating. And what that was doing in that case is, because of the amount of cover that we have here, if you're in a dry climate, we're keeping moisture in the soil longer. Right? Because we've got all this matter up above it kind of blocking the sun and evaporation, and then we've got more root matter below just holding the moisture in place. So that really helps us, you know, if you're in an area that's drought or sandy, like we're in the sandy loam soil as well. So that's a component of it. But in a normal year, we probably extend our pasture. We can open up pastures earlier because we have a faster recovery in the springtime compared to most other local farms. We can also extend later. So in fact, we've had times where we're out here pasturing still close to Christmas. You know, the preventative point at that point is how much snow do we have?
Right.
You know, if it's a little bit of snow, the cattle can get through it. If it's a lot of snow, sometimes we got to move to an alternative feed source.
Well, awesome, Josh. Thank you. I would like to walk around a little bit, maybe look at some cross fence, and just show off your system and how you section off your pasture.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, Josh. So behind you, I see some of your cross fence. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So part of when we do intensive rotational grazing is we have a perimeter fence that goes all the way around. And so a lot of people do a 5-wire, 7-wire, high tensile, or some other mechanism based off of where they live. And then in between that, when we divide in the sections, when I was talking about, this is a 16-acre field, it's divided into 4 sections. We're using, in this case, a poly wire. We've got a double poly wire. Some people use a single line poly. We've chosen to use a double just to keep them in their fences a little bit more. Some of the calves and stuff like to sneak out of the single. But when you start to look at this, and if you start to look beyond, you can see there's another set of wires back out there in the distance. So between here and there, you know, this is about a 4-acre section in this 16-acre field. And this section right here has actually been grazed 3 times already this year. And when you look at it right now, we've had a lot of moisture this year that's helped as well. But you could go hay that right now. You could go make second crop hay off of that. or you could let the cows do the job of that as well. And so they'll come out here and they'll rotate that on. And so having, you know, the 15 different pastures that we have, and we're dividing into a couple of different groups, basically they'll hit a pasture about every 8 days or so. And so that gives that pasture a little bit of time to rest. Some people like to keep the animals on the pasture for maybe 2-3 days and then have the rest period longer. We like to have a shorter rest period and have the animals out on the pasture.
Yeah. I noticed that you're using these step-in posts as your cross fence. How do you like those? How do they hold up?
Yeah, you know, for cross fences like this, you don't need anything that's more permanent. A lot of people think, oh, I'm putting in a single wire, but I got to put a T-post in or a wood post or something like that. You know, what's nice about these is you can move and change your pasture. So if an area of your pasture floods out, you can move it. Some people actually put these on reels and reel them up as well. These aren't on reels, but this pasture is intensively managed as well. You know, so we come in and we do fall fertilizer application or spring application depending on rains, because that added fertilizer helps us get that tonnage out of the pasture as well. And so, when able to do that, we got to take this wire and these posts out to get across this pasture. Or if we want to hay this field, that's one of the ways that we keep weeds down. Is, you know, it's very thick in here, so it's hard for weeds to grow anyways. That's the intentional intensive rotation grazing happening here. But we can also hay this as well and take out those weeds if we needed to. And so having that temporary posts and that poly wire allows us to do that.
All right, Josh. Well, thank you for talking to us about your pastures and how your farm operation works around here. Learned a lot today. I hope you guys did too. So, thank you.
Hey, thanks, Holly. I look forward to watching other episodes and learning from other people as well.